Hello, this is Tom Beal, and I am joining you today, this morning, via my Mevo camera there, which I'm controlling from the iPad here. So I can click there, I could click here, I can click here, expand it, and we'll just leave it like this. So you can control where the camera points to. So if you have multi speakers and things like that, you could point to different ones, and it has a face follow. But anyhow, I digress. I'm testing this out and want to share an important message with you. And this important message is something that I chat with my high level clients on a regular basis. No level of success excludes anyone from challenges, from difficulties, from surprises, from curveballs, from things that were unexpected occurring. Now, this goes to everybody. I mean, circling years back, going all the way back to 2005, I had the pleasure of working with one of my heroes, Jim Kelly, NFL Hall of Fame quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. And at the time, Jim's son, Hunter, was still alive. And Hunter was born with a very rare disease surrounding the white matter of the brain tissue called Krabbe leukodystrophy. And prior to Hunter, the life expectancy is very short, generally months or less. Due to Jim, uh, and due to Hunter being born into the capacity where Jim and his wife Jill were able to put some time, energy, and resources into everything they could to help their son, it uncovered and discovered solutions for children that aren't even born yet who have the propensity or tendencies that would lead to that disease to proactively minimize its full effects. So, in a way, Hunter, being the champion that he was and being the soul who chose to come into that body and with those adversities and challenges, has led to medical discoveries that have positively impacted many, many other lives from his journey. And he lived, I believe, to be 8 years old, which broke, the pattern and standard of what that was. Now, Jim tells the story, and I'm not sharing anything that's not discussed publicly, of how excited he was. He's two beautiful daughters, and then his son Hunter was born, and he was so excited. I got a son coming. Called up Thurman Thomas, called up all the amazing Hall of Fame players that he played with while at the Buffalo Bills, and went to 4 Super Bowls in a row. And then when Hunter was born, and they found out that disease was there, obviously he didn't have that vision of him, throwing the football around in the back, playing games and things like this. Hunter was never able to walk or talk. And so here's Jim, reached the pinnacle of his dreams and career, and highly successful, that had this amazingly uh, 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 difficult challenge for anybody to deal with, and for anybody who has a child with medical issues or certain needs, you can understand the time, the attention, the energy, the resources that's necessary to go into making sure that person that you love and care about is given the proper treatment. That's one example, and that's on way on the end of a holy cow adversity and challenge. Then it happens on a regular basis to you, to I. All of us have surprises, have challenges, have adversity that come our way. And there's an old saying that says you aren't given anything that you can't handle. And sometimes you're like, whoa, time out. I think this might have been for someone else. I don't think I can handle this one. But as time has shown, you're still here, I'm still here. We've overcome those difficulties, those challenges that seemed insurmountable. They seemed uncontrollable, seemed like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. And if it was a light, it was a train ready to run you over. You ever felt that way? I know I have. So this is just a reminder to you that in this day of social media, everybody shares their front of stage experience. They share the amazing things happening on Instagram, the amazing things happening on Facebook, and they aren't necessarily sharing the difficulties and the challenges and the curveballs that they're facing. And I just want you to know that, rest assured, if they're here in this human experience and they're still breathing, they're going to have challenges. They're going to have difficulties. They're going to have surprises. Things are not going to go their way. That's just how life operates. And this is everybody, all the way to Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Paul Allen. The last two are no longer here with us. Steve Jobs and Paul Allen have passed away. And Steve, boy, had 60 some billion when he passed away a few years ago. None of that money could save the adversity and challenges that came his way from, was it pancreatic cancer or something like that? You know, so people have that saying, "This too shall pass." Um, Life passes, right? So Steve Jobs was at the pinnacle of his creativity, and now his company, Apple, has what surpassed the $1 trillion company. And his story has much adversity in it as well. When Apple kicked him out all those years ago, here he was, the founder that got removed from the CEO position by the board of directors, right? He kicked out of his own company, and then to later be brought back in. Everybody, if you look at their life story, has had tremendous adversities and obstacles to overcome. And so this circles back to you. I get it. Like, and whether you're just coming out of a big challenge, in a huge challenge right now, or everything's great, there's one waiting for you around the corner. Now, that's not meant to scare you, not meant to be said in a negative fashion. That's just how this life journey and experience unfolds. And generally, they're one of three categories. Sometimes it's only one out of three, sometimes it's two out of three, and then every once in a while you get the trifecta where all three hit you at once. And those three categories are health. So either yourself or a loved one or a friend is dealing with some health issues or challenges. And that's mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, like all these different health challenges that you may personally be going through. Your significant other is going through, your children, your parents, your grandparents. Generally, there's something or someone that's having some health issues, to include um, death, right? Health challenges that sometimes are a surprise. Geez, I just read a story the other day here in Boca Raton, down here in South Florida. I walk to the beach every day, and on the same road that I walk, but much further west, a few miles west, Boca, there was a lady that was out in the morning bicycling that got run over and killed while doing physical activity. Healthy. Uh, you know, I don't know the age of her. I think she was maybe in her 30s, possibly 40s. Healthy, doing the right thing, getting out there exercising. And due to the sun or whatever, the person turned and ran over and killed that bicyclist. And if you had a friend or family member that suddenly passed, the pain and the sorrow and the anguish that comes with that. That's a challenge. And or a health diagnosis of, the big C word, cancer. And, both my parents were diagnosed with the C word. And very shortly thereafter, both of them passed. And that wasn't fun for anybody. Them, us, it was scary, it was sad, and it was life. Part of life is that all of us have that last day. I was fortunate enough to be with both of my parents, my mother at 52 and my father at 56 years old, both of their last breaths. And that was something I was super fortunate to be able to be there with them and for them and have that closure. The closure was there going back to that woman who was on the bicycle ride. There was no closure. She just, hey, I'll be back. I'm going on a bike ride. Came back, didn't come back. So we never know. That's one of the rubs of life. None of us have a countdown timer. There's movies about that, right? With a countdown timer of when the person will no longer be here. But fortunately, we don't have that. And at the same time, it's kind of a, you know, live today as if it were your last day, and at the same time as if you're going to live to be 120 years old, right? That dichotomy of being fully present in the moment, fully tapping into what is yours to do, and having the bravery to do it, the confidence, the bravery, you know what, this feels like it's mine to do. Go for it. Let's do it. So This message here is to help you understand. You and I are still here. There's 150,000 people that were here yesterday in the world that are not here today. Some of them may have known due to illnesses and age or whatever that their probabilities were smaller to be around today. But I imagine a high percentage of the 150,000 were hoping to be around today or didn't know they wouldn't be, but they're not. So this circles back to the age-old premise of the power of now, the power of being able to be fully present here and now. And I'm bringing this up because I'm out and about. I chat with people at the beach. I chat with people on the morning walks. I chat with people when I go to live events. We just got back from the Marketers Cruise about a month ago, and it was a 14th annual Marketers Cruise. We had about 450 people, roughly from around the world, who are mostly entrepreneurs and business owners, and some of them highly, highly successful, get together on an annual basis. It's kind of like a family reunion. And we're there for each other to have those conversations about what's truly happening, not the Facebook, not the Instagram, not the social media reality, but the real reality. What's happening in your family? What's happening in your business? What's happening in your life, in your health? And in those real conversations, you recognize no matter how successful anybody is or any other aspect, everybody has challenges. Everybody has difficulties. Everybody has surprises. And that's kind of the game of life. Just like in any game, any video game or any game you participate in, part of the game is the challenge. What fun would it be where if every time you played tennis, you crushed the opponent? Every time, never even close. It's boring and you wouldn't do it. Think about that. Life has put it up into the game rules that it is a formidable opponent. It will continually challenge you. It will continually help you grow. Think about that. There's another quote. Tony Robbins did a live event yesterday with 500,000 people on. It was he, Dean Graziosi, Russell Brunson, and Jenna Kutcher that were doing the live aspect. And one of the things I learned from Tony a long time ago, the quote is, you're either growing or you're dying. So think about the tennis example, and I'll even go up to a sport that was near and dear to my heart and my friend Russell, who was on last night. And Russell, we are due for a rematch soon. I'll come out to Idaho and go to your amazing facility, and we'll make it happen. So in wrestling, if you're the person who's crushing everybody in the daily practice, what you're doing is helping everyone get better, but you're not improving because you don't have someone who's helping you sharpen your skills. You don't want to be the best in the room continuously, because what will happen is you'll help bring everyone up to your level, but you're not continuously improving. So you want to be involved with someone who's at the next level, who can help bring you, even at the high level that you may be, to the next level. And this happened in wrestling. This happened for me in bicycle riding. I was a bicycle freestyle champion, a national champion, doing the tricks on the bikes. And same thing, if you're the best trickster, the one who can pull the most hard and difficult tricks, you're going to help everyone get to your level, but you need someone who's at the level above you to help bring you to that next level. And that's just how life works. You're either growing or you're dying. And so life is going to be a formidable opponent and share with you some adversities and challenges, which that old saying is, life doesn't give you anything you can't handle. Sometimes you, like me, may question that. But what's that doing? It's helping you grow. And think about where you are today, where I am today. We are hopefully further ahead mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually than we were a year ago. What's that mean? The challenges that life is putting in front of us are there to help us, to mold us, and are perfectly there to, in the puzzle of our lives, in the puzzle of humanity, to make sense. Like, aha, I can see that. I can see how that helped me grow. That difficulty, that challenge helped me grow in ways that I wouldn't want to wish that challenge on anyone else to have to go through, but I'm thankful now that I'm past it, that I went through it, to gain the lessons that were there for me. So that leads to another quote from Napoleon Hill. And this quote isn't comforting when you're going through difficult times, but it's true if you look back on your history, at least in my history and everybody that I've talked to, which is thousands and thousands of people just in the last few years, that it's true. And here's the quote: every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Once again, every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. So if you're going through huge adversity right now, big challenges, insurmountable seemingly, those in due time will produce that benefit. That lesson will be gleaned. And sometimes it's very quickly. Other times it can be a year, it can be a decade. But looking back on some of the most difficult challenges I've faced in my life, I am very thankful because that led me to be who I am today. So for instance, I was born to teenagers. My mother was 17, my father was 19 when I was born, which in and of itself was a miracle because abortion had just been legalized shortly before my conception. And from what I've heard, there were some discussions about not having me. It wasn't from my 17-year-old mother and 19-year-old father, thankfully, at the time. It was from other family members who think about it. If you have a child, oh, you're just a kid, you got life ahead of you, are you sure? Well, thankfully, they were persistent enough to allow me to even come into this world. But now I have parents that are 17 and 19. They're still kids, and now I'm a baby. And surprisingly, their marriage didn't last, right? 17 and 19 getting married. And they got divorced. A lot of chaos, a lot of drama, a lot of adversity. And while I was still a baby, they got remarried second time and redivorced a second time before I was just a few years old. So they gave it a go. But I can look back empathetically and say, man, they were just kids. They didn't know how to be parents. They didn't know how to be husband and wife, and how to make that all work at that particular time. And also it unfolded perfectly, exactly as it needed to. And then through that, uh, my dad got married a couple more times. My mom got married a couple more times. So I basically, as a child, I lived through 4 divorces and 6 marriages. And yes, there were a lot of tears. There was a lot of pain. There was a lot of adversity. There was a lot of challenges. I went to 9 different schools by 8th grade. And in no way, shape, or form am I saying this to say, oh, woe is me. I'm saying this to reflect upon that quote: every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. What that taught me were so many lessons that I'm so thankful for now, yet was extremely painful and extremely sad for me to live through as a child. And I've talked with my aunts, and we've shed some tears in remembering some times that were extremely painful. The time that my mom had met my stepfather, Cliff. Cliff, what's happening, man? Love you, appreciate you. And Cliff's family uh, lived, well, not lived. There was some up in New York, but they had a house there. But they also lived in uh, North Carolina. And so we moved from upstate New York. So in those 9 schools by 8th grade, in 3rd grade, I moved from upstate New York to North Carolina. And we lived in Moxville in Harmony, North Carolina. And I went to a couple different schools on there. It was actually, we lived on a farm, right? So all of this, like, was part of the story that looking back, I'm so grateful for. The lessons I learned on that farm. First of all, anyone who's a farmer, my hat is off to you. The commitment, the dedication, the every day. There's no vacation as a farmer. You have to work every day, morning to sun, pre-sunrise to post sunset. It's a commitment that very few uh, outside of the farming world would ever know what it takes. So that led me to grasp as a youngster the power of commitment, the power of dedication, the power of doing the work. And my work ethic comes dramatically from the living on the farm in North Carolina, waking up pre-sunrise to milk the cows, then in the evening milking the cows, feeding the cows, and we had all sorts of other animals as well. The calves, you know, it was an incredible experience. Now, Dan and Seth and Kara, my step brothers and sister, I remember Dan and I, and Dan, we were out in the field, and Seth, I think, was there too. We were young. Dan and I were 8, so Seth must have been 6 or something like that. And we're out in the field baling hay, and we're laughing. We're like, man, this is slave labor. We're working our tail off as youngsters. But that's what the farming world requires. And so, long story short, I mean, I'm super proud of, Dan, Seth, and Kara. Dan is pretty much, he was the USA Rugby CEO. I think he's in World Rugby right now. Like he's the Dana White of rugby, right? And so Dan, I'm super proud of you. And from the farming that we went through, and then also getting into wrestling. Dan was a elite wrestler. Seth was a kick butt wrestler as well. And so from the farming and the wrestling, it ingrained, and other sports as well, ingrained a work ethic that led to, well, a couple things. And I'm reflecting back and all the difficulties and challenges of the divorces and the moving and the chaos. When we're in the midst of what many would determine chaos, or, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening, from the dysfunction that we grew up in, we're like, that's no big deal. Like that's simple. We were young. That's easy. Because we grew up around so much chaos. We grew up around, those extreme circumstances led us to not be shakable. We are unshakable in our daily lives now. So when challenges or difficulties hit, we persevere and we move forward. So Dan is like, I don't know if that's correct. Dan, you have to help me know if you see this. Let me know if that's the correct analogy. But I pretty much see you as the Dana White, how Dana is for UFC. You are that for rugby, and helping to open people in the U.S. and world's eyes about that amazing sport that I don't know anything about other than I enjoy watching it on occasion. But Dan became a kick butt rugby player and then a coach, and now doing some great things to help other kids in schools and everybody gain the benefits of that amazing sport. And my other stepbrother went on to walk on to Cornell football team and kicked butt as a college football player. Like A, he had a growth spurt like crazy, and B, he kicked major butt enough to where he was an Ivy League draft into the NFL back in 1997 and played in the NFL for 10 years and did tremendously well for the Jacksonville Jaguars and Houston Texans. And now he's still in Houston doing an amazing radio show. And he's hilarious. He's knowledgeable and just an awesome dude who's spreading joy and doing good things in that community. And Kara is now an amazing mother to a couple beautiful kids, got an amazing husband, doing some great things. And so from that adversity, it helped all of us become who we are today. And going back to that quote, every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. So looking back on your past, what can you see as some of the toughest moments of your life that you can look back and instead of look back on like, man, I wish that wouldn't have happened, say, you know what, that happened perfectly. And I'm so thankful for everything happening the way that it did because it led me to here and now. It led me to who I am now. And the lessons that were gained were perfect for me. So that different perspective. So like I said, they're not comforting if you're going through some wild times right now, but just know this too shall pass. And so I gave a couple examples earlier on the Simplifier page. So if you look up in Facebook, Tom Beal, the Simplifier, you'll find my page over there. I gave 2 examples. I'm going to give some different examples here of difficult times. I'm going to share one of the most difficult times in my life and how that benefit still serves me today. So here I was in the United States Marine Corps. I was the honor graduate, the honor man from my boot camp platoon. So at Parris Island, South Carolina, 80, 82 people in my platoon when we started. There was about 60 some when we finished. And I was the guide for the of the 3 months. I was the guide for the second half of that. So about a month and a half, I was the guide, which basically meant I had to rally everybody together and say, look, it's crazy. We got these drill instructors yelling at us all the time, but we got to pull together as a team and work together as a team, or else it's going to be more miserable than it already is. So we did pull together, and then my platoon, 3028, ended up winning. I guess they call it the triple towers or whatever. We won the drill. We were the drill, the marching. We won the drill competition. We won the highest rifle range average score. We won the highest physical fitness average score. We also won the highest average testing. So basically, we won all that you could win in boot camp as a platoon by pulling everyone together. And when I was the guide, I led by example and pretty much said, look, as long as you're giving your best, that's all I can ask for. But if you're not giving your best, because at this point, at the end of boot camp, if anyone on the platoon messed up, I was the one that got punished. So they'd be watching me getting punished in the sand, and they're the ones that messed up. And that was part of being that leader, and lots of lessons in that. And I said, look, I'll gladly take the punishment if you're giving me your all. If you're not giving me your all and I'm getting punished for you slacking, we're going to have some problems. And so we pulled together. We did apparently an incredible feat of winning all that we won. And then I was selected as the honor man, which was a great honor. And my grandfather, Ed, was there to help clean up Pearl Harbor. He wasn't at Pearl Harbor when it was attacked in World War II, but he was off in that area when it was attacked, and his ship came in the day after to help clean up. And so he witnessed that devastation and destruction of Pearl Harbor. And whenever we were watching TV shows and Pearl Harbor was on, he would know that, oh yeah, that was, he knew like the people that were being interviewed on the shows and stuff. But he and my grandma, Virginia, were at graduation, April 2nd, 1993. And when they were there, they were presented with someone came up to them, asked if they were Mr. and Mrs. Beale. They said, yes. So, well, the commanding general would like to, the base commanding general would like to have you sit next to him because your grandson was chosen as the honor man. And so he was so proud, and my grandma was so proud to be able to get to sit next to the base general. And they truly enjoyed that moment. It was a great moment for sure. Then I went into the fleet. Actually, so I got meritoriously promoted out of boot camp, and then I went to my MOS school, which is in Fort Bliss, Texas, and I was a Hawk Missile Systems operator. So I got trained on these 14-foot missiles that were surface-to-air missiles, and the radars and missiles and things like that out at Fort Bliss, Texas. Funny enough, my dad almost passed out when I told him I was going to Fort Bliss, Texas to be a Hawk Missile System operator, because in 1972, when I was born, and when my mother and father were first married, he and my mother and I were at Fort Bliss, Texas, as he was a trainer training people on Hawk missiles. And so he couldn't believe it when I told him I was going to Fort Bliss, Texas to learn how to be a Hawk Missile System operator. He was a trainer back in 1972. I was on that base as a baby in the first or second, I'm not sure if it was the first or second time they were married, but I actually was there and he was doing the same thing. So his mind was blown, my mind was blown when that occurred. But I went for 3 months to Fort Bliss, Texas to learn that MOS. And then went to the fleet shortly after, went to the fleet. And I got meritoriously promoted out of MOS school as well. And then in the fleet, I had been selected for MESEP program. Very few Marines get selected for this. So it's called the Marine Enlisted Commissioning Program. They take you out of enlisted, send you to college, get your bachelor's, come back, go through officer candidate school in Quantico, and then go back to the fleet as an officer. And so I had my MESEP package on the colonel's desk. which is a big deal. And it was a huge honor. At the same time, the movie with Tom Cruise, A Few Good Men, was out, and A Few Good Men was talking about hazing, and hazing was the hot topic at that particular point because of the movie and other things. So I had just been transferred from, and my unit was transferred from Cherry Point, North Carolina to Yuma, Arizona. And little did we know there was a hazing incident that went wrong, and people were told prior to us getting there, the next hazing incident, there was going to be hell to pay. There was going to be an example made. And so we didn't know this. And there was an individual that they wanted to get, right? And he, Ayala, I love you. And that all unfolded perfectly as well. But I think he would admit he wasn't, he didn't play by the rules per se, and Mick will have to catch up one of these days. Um, but they wanted me to be there because he also was a wrestler. He's pretty tough. So they said, we need you to help get him down. And so I went in, double legged him, got him down, but I was only there to make sure nothing crazy happened. So they pink bellied him, they gave him Charlie horses, and there were some people that were thinking of getting a little crazy. I made sure that didn't happen, and nothing crazy happened. Pink belly and Charlie horses. But long story short, as he was walking to the shower, there was another lieutenant there, boot lieutenant, second lieutenant, that, what happened, Marine? Why's your belly red? And he escalated this, and it was brought to other people's attention. Long story short, I was a corporal about to pick up sergeant meritoriously and go off into the MESEP program. And me and the other 7 Marines were, through what's called non-judicial punishment, I was busted from corporal to lance corporal. And in essence, I was going to be picking up sergeant in a couple weeks. So it was a pretty big, devastating demotion. And so I went to the MESEP package, AKA like one of the best on the base, to now getting busted and the MESEP package ripped up in front of my face. That wasn't too fun. And so basically the top of the heap to the bottom like that. And it had an emotional impact on me and a mental impact on me. And it took me about a week to sulk and wonder what the heck happened, how to go from the best. I was only there to make sure it didn't get out of control. However, I accepted the fact that I chose to be there, and in choosing to be there, accepted the disciplinary actions that resulted from that. But it was an emotional, hard time, to say the least. Um, but finally, it hit me. And here's the epiphany that hopefully is helpful to you. It hit me. I'm the same person. I'm still the same leader as I was a week ago. I don't have the extra stripe. I went from corporal to lance corporal to, and in essence, basically it's from getting promoted to sergeant down to corporal, but I'm still the same person. I'm still the leader. Nobody saw me as any different because of the pins that I was wearing. I still was a leader. So it was finally just me, after the week of sulking, recognizing, you know what? Hey, I chose to be there. This isn't how I expected it to unfold, but this is how it unfolded. And guess what? I'm going to continue to do what's mine to do. And that's be the person that I'm meant to be the leader I am. And just picked myself back up and went into doing what had always been mine, which was do the best that I can possibly do in all that I do. And in very short order, I was meritoriously promoted from lance corporal back to corporal. And then they were asking me and wanting me to re-enlist, so I did my 4 years, and at the end of the 4 years, I was corporal again. And I said, you know what? I think I've done what's mine to do here. So I exited the Marine Corps after 4 years of active duty with an honorable discharge. And looking back, like, every adversity carries with it the seeds of an equivalent or greater benefit. That helped me recognize many important lessons and also helped me transition. At the time, I was a lifer. And what a lifer means is at least 20 years. Like at the time, I was planning on going to MESEP, getting out of enlisted, going to college, coming back, going to officer candidate school, and becoming an officer and back in the fleet. But here's the twist of fate, and this may sound dramatic. Had that path occurred, I would be dead long ago. Let that sink in. I'm letting it sink in. And here's why. There has been 16 years of peace in the United States since its formation. 16 years of peace. 1993 to 1997 was my 4 years of active duty. When you enlist in the Marine Corps, it's an 8-year commitment, either 4 or 6 active and 4 or 2 inactive, for a total of 8. Half of America's peacetime since its inception as a country is when I served. 50% of its peacetime, 8 years of the 16 years of peace that it's had, I served. Months after my 8 years became September 11th, 2001. And we've been in war since. Went to Iraq, went to Afghanistan, etc. As a leader that I was and that I am, I lead by example. I lead from the front. Chances are pretty high in those conflicts I could have been not just injured but killed, right? Who knows? All I do know is I didn't know what the future held, other than at that time, prior to that circumstance, I pictured myself being in the Marine Corps for 20 years. After that circumstance, I recognized no matter how many attaboys you have, one uh-oh pulls it all away. And I said, man. And actually, that lieutenant who raised it up the flag, he got out about a year before I did. And he came over to me and said, Beal, me doing what I did was probably the dumbest thing that could have ever been done. I apologize. I say, man, you did what you thought you had to do. It is what it was. And he said, look, you're one of the best Marines that I've been fortunate enough to meet. And I can't believe that's where it all led. So, well, it happened the way it happened. And from this perspective now, all these years later, 25 years later, there couldn't have been a better circumstance. So can you see, every adversity carries with it the CW equivalent or greater benefit. That changed my trajectory of where I thought my life was going. And I still contemplated staying in after that at 4 years. I was like, should I, shouldn't I? It was not a simple decision. But the big thing in my mind was all those attaboys were wiped out with one uh-oh. And I'm not diminishing my choice in being there, but I was there specifically to make sure nothing got out of hand. But I still chose to be there. But that small circumstance changed the trajectory of my life and put me on a whole different path. So look back in your life and reflect on those and know that not only is it true that this too shall pass, but the other truth is every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. So I'm sharing this with you to let you know, no matter how successful anybody is, no matter what the appearances are on social media, everybody, I mean everybody, has challenges. And, even last night. So last night, there was a big, huge event. 500,000 people tuned in to watch Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, Jenna Kutcher, and Russell Brunson. 500,000 people. And in Tony's story, and Tony mentioned it, I'm trying to reflect, Tony and Dean both came from nothing. Like Tony, y'all remember the story from Personal Power, the infomercial, way back when. He was doing his dishes in the bathtub. And finally, enough is enough. And he went out on a run and said, I'm changing my life. And he lost a lot of weight. He just put himself on a whole nother path. And Dean had has a great story as well. And then Russell shared last night, there was a time, and he actually came down and he talked about when he started his podcast, and like he started right after he let go about 86 people. He had to fire 86 people due to some changes in his industry. He worked for years to build up, a recurring multi-million dollar business. Some shifts happened and woke up and changed the whole trajectory of that business, and had to let go a lot of people. And he was, as he said last night, he was on the phone with some bankruptcy attorneys, like, just at that lowest moment. And that's when he started a podcast. And that's when he came down here and met with Rich Sheffrin and I, and Brent came down with him as well. And, realized like, hey, I'm still the same person. Similar to me getting demoted, when that shift happened and it turned that whole business upside down unexpectedly, he still realized I'm still the same person. I'm still prolific. I'm still creative. I'm still, energetic, charismatic, and I'll continue moving forward. And not only did he not have to go bankrupt, but that led him to a couple more product launches, a couple more things, which led to ClickFunnels, which is now, one of the fastest growing software companies, at multiple hundreds of millions of dollars and growing. And many, many lessons from that, right? So looking at Tony and Dean and Russell and Jenna, they had that quote come true as well. The biggest adversities had the biggest benefits. And just like, that trajectory modifying point in my Marine Corps journey led me to leaving after my 4 years and putting me on a whole different path. Look back in your life. And if you're in some difficult, challenging times now, know that this too shall pass. Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. But regardless of what you're going through, you're still who you are. And the thing to not do, or the thing that you're not supposed to do is nothing. Do something. Do something. And keep taking action, one step at a time, one day at a time. And sure enough, just like I walk to the beach every morning, 2 miles there, roughly 2 miles back, one step at a time, it happens. You'll get there. And this too shall pass. And you'll recognize the adversity led to the biggest benefit. So keep your head up, stand tall, and say, you know what? It's time. It's time for me to show them what's happening next. Here comes a plot twist nobody saw. Right at that moment when Russell started his podcast, when he and Brent came down here, chat with Rich and I, he didn't know what was ahead. He can't see the success of that company. He just knew, well, the thing to not do is nothing. The thing to do is something. I'm going to do this, which will lead to this, which will lead, one thing leads to another. And so anyhow, I wanted to put this out there to inspire you, to let you know, hey, you're human. We're still here. There's challenges. There's challenges I'm going through. Big, big challenges. And I'm excited. The best awaits. Paul Dixon. What's up, man? Wise words, Tom. Thank you. Appreciate that. By the way, I just saw on the iPad that it does pop up here. I may have missed a whole bunch of others. I just saw that one. So enjoy the journey, right? So the thing to not do is nothing. The thing to do is something. And that leads to one dot connecting the next. And right now, in retrospect, Russell can look back and say, man, I'm so thankful everything happened the way it happened. Not at the moment when the carpet was pulled out and everything fell apart, but now in retrospect, by taking one step at a time, continuously, consistently. It's amazing how you'll be able to connect the dots in retrospect, as will I, right? So here's something for you. If you're willing to step out of your comfort zone, if you're willing to give something a new try, you may have heard me talking about it over the last few weeks, because I did about a week ago complete a 10-day fasting experience. 6 days of no food whatsoever, and then broke that fast, and then immediately went into a 3-day apple fast. I've been sharing this apple fast for years. And the thing that's been amazing is, without putting any energy or effort into it, just talking about it, people come up to me later, say, hey, I did it. And man, it opened my eyes to my eating habits, of how wrong they were. Like, I was eating just hypnotically, ritualistically, eating unconsciously. And once I did the 3-day apple fast, I started changing my eating habits. And here's some real scenarios. People have lost 20 pounds, 50 pounds, 100 pounds over time that started from a 3-day apple fast. Why? Because it's not during the 3 days you lose, yeah, you'll lose some weight, but if you go back to your old eating habits, you'll gain that right back as soon as you finish the 3-day fast. But the key is on the 3-day apple fast, it opens your eyes to see and recognize the patterns of eating habitually, ritualistically, socially, emotionally, out of boredom, out of procrastination, out of convenience, versus out of eating, out of intention, and out of conscious choice. And that small shift helps people see that they don't have to eat hypnotically and unconsciously. They can actually eat intentionally and consciously to fuel their billion-dollar body. And it changes not just their body weight, but it brings back the power of intentionality, of conscious choice in such a simple hypnotic thing that we've been programmed into eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And whether you're hungry or not, well, that's everybody does it. Well, the quick rule in life, if you're in my world, if everybody's going that way, chances are good you probably want to be going the other way. If everybody's doing it one way, you definitely want to do it a different way. At least all the high performers that I work with, that's the pattern. So intentionally and consciously bringing that back. And so I have a Facebook group and some step-by-step itemization of how to actually do it simply, quickly, and have those epiphanies. If you go to the site 3dayapplefast.com, the number 3dayapplefast.com. It's my page. It's a quick, enter your name and email, and it'll introduce you to the Facebook group and videos in there. And recently, since we just had the marketers cruise, I told people on there, you're going to see many people giving it a shot for the first time and sharing their experiences and the epiphanies they had and the lessons they learned. And it's not just about the weight loss. It's about the eye-opening, breaking out of that hypnotic state to now living and leading a life intentionally versus unconsciously. It's huge. It's a game changer. So go check it out at 3dayapplefast.com. It'll lead you to the Facebook group. I look forward to seeing you inside there. I hope this was helpful for you. And I'll share this. This is one of those things that's been right in front of me for so long. And now that I shared it on the Marketers Cruise, and so many people are talking about it, that there's been a few people requesting if I would do a group coaching scenario. And so I'm contemplating that. I'm thinking of opening something up like that. If you'd like to be in a group coaching scenario, taking it a step further than just the Facebook group, but actually having a group that's committed to daily accountability, to shift into this intentional eating and living, shoot me a private message. Shoot me a private message, and I'll put you on that list and see how that unfolds. So enough people have asked me about it to where I'm contemplating it and think that will be something happening very soon. So if you want to be a part of that, shoot me a private message, and I'll add you to the list and let you know how that unfolds. Until then, go to 3dayapplefast.com. Stand tall, take a deep breath. I know you got this. You know you got this. Maybe you don't. Sometimes, hey, I don't know if I have this one. But look, you got this. One day at a time. Take some action and watch how this too shall pass. And watch how that quote, every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit will come true for you. In the meantime, I look forward to seeing you inside the 3-Day Apple Fast Facebook group, and go to 3dayapplefast.com. Register. I look forward to communicating with you inside the group. Chat with you soon. Make today great.